go. You're up and running.
All right, we're up and running. I'm really excited to have everybody here today. I didn't get to talk about everybody introducing themselves and talking a little bit about, I'll introduce everybody. We've got a great panel here for the bullying prevention webinar. I was really excited about the response we got for the autism webinar. We're going to do a couple more of these I'll talk about later when we get done with this, but today is really an important topic for me. It's what I did my doctoral work on in bullying prevention and martial arts, specifically how bullying prevention or martial arts helps with bullying. And what we're going to find is that it's a big deal. That martial arts is one of the best things that you could ever do for your kid related to bullying, but only if you do it the right way. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And to do that, we've got to make sure we understand really what's real and not real about bullying. But to get started here, let's talk. We got an amazing panel today with some great people. So let me introduce everybody first. First of all, Grandmaster Stephen Oliver. He's a 9th degree black belt and the founder of Mile High Karate and, of course, Martial Arts Wealth Mastery Group, and a great friend of mine and a great mentor of mine, and really helping schools all over the country with their with growing their schools. And I've been working with him for many years. Everybody should be working with him right now. But Master Oliver, could you say a little bit about what you've been doing the last many years here with schools?
Yeah, you know, and given that we also have Master Olson on the line here, I fear that she's here as an example of me bullying her on a regular basis. That is a different conversation. There is a fine line between exuberant coaching and intimidation, shall we say. But Master Moody is just smirking at that one. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, I've been running martial arts schools since I was 14, although the period of 14 to 18 or 19 is kind of laughable. It's the typical in the YMCA clueless working in a warehouse or whatever to make a living. But then I had an eye-opening experience. I went to Georgetown University and was a branch manager for the Junior Institute under Nick Okinis, Jeff Smith, Junior et al. And decided that a career as a professional kickboxer wasn't nearly as alluring as I thought it would be. Getting hit in the frontal lobes for $100 a round wasn't very exciting to me at the time. But I did decide that martial arts as a career running schools had a lot of potential. And Junior Institute was a multi-million-dollar organization in the 70s into the 80s and beyond. So I came to Denver with a business plan rather than going to Harvard for an MBA at the time, and opened 5 schools in 18 months, 6 schools in 30 months, and they really haven't looked back. So I had a $1 million operation back when I was 25, and that's a multi-million-dollar operation in today's dollars, and have continued to go forward from there. And then Master Moody, what's it been now? Probably 2001-ish. I kind of stumbled into coaching and consulting, frankly, because an awful lot of schools that had fallen victim to mass training and were on the brink of insolvency after they cashed out all of their students. And I had written a couple books and stumbled kind of backwards into trying to save people who had been bozo explosioned, as we've come to call it, which I stole from Steve Jobs. But as Master Thomas knows and Master Moody knows, and certainly Master Olson knows, there's a massive bozo explosion of pretend experts and people who are leading people in the wrong direction. That's overwhelmingly true in the internet marketing side, because every idiot with a laptop thinks they're an internet marketing expert. But it's just as distinct in every other aspect of running your business. So we do the Martial Arts Wealth Mastery Program, and we have a free offer for everybody as well. But I'm too wordy, but is that a good start, Master Moody?
Yeah, and what I want to say is everybody, I think a lot of people in the industry know you for the things that you just mentioned, Master Oliver, but you're absolutely a great instructor. And when, what people don't know, and Master Olson can mention this because she's been to your black belt retreats. And one of the reasons you're here is because what you really care about and what makes all those things work is really good service for students and making sure that we understand how to do martial arts the right way so that we have great results and so that we have the outcomes so that they're not pulled and have the outcomes so that they have really good character. And we have the outcomes so that they this program is good for kids with autism, like we mentioned before. So, you know, Master Oliver's here for exactly the reasons that we want to discuss. And yes, those are some great things that a lot of you guys seek Master Oliver out. But don't make a mistake that this isn't part of that. This isn't what you need to have good martial arts programs so that you can have those kind of outcomes too. So he's here for those reasons as well, because we really respect what he does in those areas. And everybody here in this call is that way. You mentioned internet marketing experts. Next one I'm going to introduce is Master Thomas, who is the best internet marketing experts in the industry. Probably, it really is the best in the industry. And he's also a martial arts instructor that's here for this very reason. So,
I might add to what you said, Master Smith, or Master Moody. I just got off a webinar with Jeff Smith. But the great fallacy in our industry among the broke school owners is that you have to water down your curriculum and water down your deliverable in order to make money, and that the quote-unquote marketing and salespeople are teaching poor quality martial arts to make a quick buck. And it's not that there aren't a few that try to do that, but it's not sustainable. The reality of everybody that I work with and all of my friends who are successful is they teach higher quality martial arts, have better student retention, and go way above and beyond the physical into the mental and emotional development of the student. And that's the only way. You know, it's Zig Ziglar's old line, you can have everything you want if you help enough other people get what they want. And it's by elevating that deliverable, not by tricking people into contracts and talking them into things they don't want to do.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, sir. And thanks for being here. Next person I want to introduce is Master Tracy Thomas. He's an H3 black belt and has 4 schools in Virginia Beach and been a martial artist forever. He's also founder of Go-To Karate and helping lots of schools grow their school through websites and marketing programs and lots of other things. So let Master Thomas talk a little bit about what he's doing here and what you know, some of his experience. And we'll try to go pretty quick here. I know Master Oliver spent some good time. We got to go quick through everybody here. Go ahead, Master Thomas.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Master Moody. I'll keep it really short. It's kind of what Master Oliver was saying, or Grandmaster Oliver was saying, is that, you know, a lot of people in the industry right now, they're coming out of everywhere. They're just crawling out. It seems like it's more like a herd of them. And everybody's becoming an expert because they were successful with doing a campaign or they were running one school. It's quite different when you're trying to take yourself to the next level or teaching somebody else to go to that next level. And from a marketing standpoint, I'm here on the call today. Appreciate being invited, but basically Master Moody's a good friend of mine, and we really want to help. The bullying across the nation is an absolute epidemic. And it's much as an epidemic in the real world, what we're seeing on the internet is everybody is flocking to those keywords right now. They're looking for help across the nation. You have people like Amanda Olson, who's her AskMom.com. She's helping people by going around and speaking. You got Master Oliver who's helping people with the business models and whatnot. Master Moody, this bully prevention thing here is really going to, it's really a passion of mine, helping people overcome this, because it's a needed thing in our world today. And I really don't have much more to say on that, other than we'll have a special offer later on. We'll talk about why you need to have a bully prevention page, basically bullying prevention page, and what it takes to get that done.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, and that's what he was talking about with keywords, is people are searching and seeking out bullying prevention. So when you learn how to do it right in your school, which is what we're going to cover today, and you got to know about the issue first. But when you learn how to do it right, which is relatively pretty easy, you just got to do a few things differently probably than what you're doing now. You're gonna find that a lot of people will be seeking you out, and really you'll be a good benefit for them. Next, Master Amanda Olson. She has founded, has an amazing school in Johnson City, Tennessee, with 500 students. Been there forever, doing fantastic in her martial arts business. But we've known each other forever. But she's founded Ask Master Mom, which is askmastermom.com, which is a website, but also she's on TV. She's answering questions for basically not just people in Tennessee, but all over, about what to do for parents, what to do with their kids when they're having problems. So she's really launched this just a few months ago, and it's just exploded. So she's written a book that's going to be published pretty soon. You're going to be able to buy it on Amazon and on iBooks and everywhere. It's pre-publishing right now. It's amazing. So let me let her talk about it a little bit more, but it's amazing what she's done in just a few months. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Master Moody. I appreciate that. And I am very excited about this team coming together because it just helps get the word out even more across the country. You guys helping with the website and helping me take the message that I was having here locally and spread it out nationally. So that has just been very, very exciting, get a lot of positive feedback. And so, I founded Ask Master Mom because I was doing that every day in my martial arts school here in Tennessee. And Ask Master Mom, having the website and the book and being able to be on TV and do public speaking engagements, I can just get the word out to a lot more people about especially things like bully prevention. Even yesterday, one of the questions that came in was cyberbullying. What do you do about that? And so I had a chance to speak on that. And of course, I'd like to get your expertise on a little bit more information for that too. So it's been a great partnership with everyone here on the team to help in the bullying program.
Thank you, ma'am. Very good. And it's going to keep exploding and been an amazing resource for not just people, not just parents, but for martial artists. So thank you so much.
Yes.
And then we have Chief Master Patty Barnum, 8th degree black belt, and a bunch of schools in the Chicago area. Known her forever, and she also helped develop the bullying prevention program that you're seeing today, and helped me do a lot of research with this. We're writing a book together right now that will be coming out relatively quickly. We're kind of getting the outline of it together right now. So she's here, and she's just as much of an expert as me. So Master Barnum, can you speak a little bit on what your thoughts on bullying prevention?
Well, I think it's very important for every martial arts school owner to understand bullying prevention and not just say they know about it, that they really study it, because you're dealing with children's lives and you can either help them or you can mess them up. So I think that we should get on with the program, because I know everybody's waiting to see what we have to present today, and we'll be able to answer questions as we go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for a very short introduction. I appreciate everybody talking a little bit about who they are and what they're doing, so everybody understands and gets an idea of what to expect today. So without further ado, let's get started. And we've got a lot to cover. Before we really get started on what I'm going to show you in the on the screen here a little bit, let me see if I can don't have any other technical issues, because we had some technical issues earlier, and we're having technical issues now. I'm gonna show you what's happened on the web right now. So I'm sharing a little bit different screen. These are just a few samples of what's happened on the internet in the last couple. These are the last couple days. This one is a teen with autism attempted suicide. The school's getting sued. Now, I'm not a very litigious guy. I don't think people should be suing other people for no reason. But this is scholars were bullied. This is just in the last couple days, guys. This one's an interesting article. Some of you might have seen this that I mentioned in an email I sent out. Teasing kids about their weight may make them gain more. Some of you guys might have thought this was okay to do, that, if a kid was young and he was a little bit overweight. Some people might think that, oh, hey, you're a little bit overweight. You ought to eat a little bit less, or you ought to go exercise more. That would actually make them, what we find is that makes them gain weight later. What's some other ones here? There's a whole bunch of articles recently about kids committing suicide. Some of these didn't load very quickly. This is another one about baseball bullying. I just wanted to show you a few articles, because some of these were all within the last 4 or 5 days. This kid was bullied just because they were a redhead. I don't know if you got to see the one where a kid had a birth defect, where he had extra skin on his face, and the kids were calling him a monster at school. So I wanted to share these a little bit. This is about work bullying. These were different things. These are other articles that I wanted to mention too. This was a contest unveiled, Take Action Against Bullying. I mentioned this one here. This was just, this is May 31st. That's about a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks ago. This is an example. I want you to think about this one, or remember this in your mind, because what you're going to find is that these kind of programs don't work, or at least remember it in your mind, and maybe you can think about later when we go through this, why they may not work. So just think about it, and as we go through the program today, there's so much content out there and there's so many opinions out there about bullying that you have to be careful. And after today, you should be able to think about, or you should be able to critically analyze what's really right and what's really wrong about bullying. Okay, so as far as your opinions or what you have, your knowledge right now, oops, I apologize. I am trying to, okay, my screen wasn't cooperating, I apologize, guys. So now what we're gonna do is, you guys all need to take a test. So hopefully this works, we've never done this before. So there's a poll. So if everybody on the webinar can really quickly, just give you a minute here. Now the moderators, you guys can't take the, you can't do the poll. But I'd like to do a poll here real quick of everybody on the webinar and just answer these questions really quickly. So really quick, you can should all be able to take these, take this test really quick and answer true, false. 8 quick questions. Do it as fast as you can. If you've done this test before, don't take it. Just whoever hasn't done this before, just as quick as you can, take this test. There's 8 quick questions. We'll give you about 1 minute and a half to do it. So it's a really fast test. While we're doing that, if I can, I'm going to give you, how do you answer? You can just click the true false button. You should be able to just click the, oh, wait a minute. Sorry. I have to click the launch button.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. The test popped up now. The test should have popped up now. Sorry about that, guys.
It is there, Master.
Okay, so now you should be able to take the test as we go through the overview here. So what we're going to do today is see what you do know about martial arts. Okay, that's what this quiz is about. We're going to find out why bullying matters. So we're going to talk a little bit about what bullying, what matters in bullying today, if this comes up on the screen. We're going to make sure you have all the information you need so you can do it right in your school. Good job answering the questions, guys. Keep answering. We're going to talk about the state laws. The reason you want to know the state laws is because when you go to schools, it'll help you with walking into a school and talking to a principal about it. And most schools that you'll talk about, hey, Master Oliver, we're going to mute you so that we don't get the feedback. Most schools are non-compliant with their own state laws. So most schools are non-compliant with their own state laws. We'll talk about the kinds of bullying, because some of those you probably don't know. Talk about really important data, because then when you talk to a school, you can mostly surprise them with stuff that they don't know. We'll talk about what schools do. Most of the schools are doing incorrect things. And I'll talk about my study, which will show you, if you do the correct things, how martial arts can be the best possible thing that a parent can do to help with bullying, okay? And then how to use the info and how you can use it in your school. So if all you care about today is, understanding about bullying, we're going to spend a lot of time on that. If all you care about today is, yeah, you got to scroll down. Thanks, Master Oliver. If all you care about today is marketing in your business, we're going to work on that too. So you're going to be able to help this with your business. So if you're an instructor and you're not doing any business, that's fine. You're going to learn a lot about how you're going to work with your kids. If all you care about today is getting new members, this is going to work for you as well. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit more time and let's see what else we got. Okay, and 42 of you have answered. We got 60% voted. And I'm going to end the poll. So here's all the questions. Somebody asked how long the webinar. We're going to take as long as we need. Usually we end up, let me go through all these. Usually we end up about 90 minutes. Okay, so here's all the questions. Oops. Okay, so here's all the questions. So I'm going to end the poll. 42 of you answered. Some of you probably couldn't get the right answers. So let me go through these really quick. You guys are pretty good about this. So maybe you guys have heard some of these questions before, and it turns out the education here is pretty good. So for you guys in martial arts, you're more educated than most people. Most of the time when we ask these questions with teachers in a group, and I've done these kind of not webinars, but seminars with teachers in a group, generally they answer about 50% true, 50% false. The real answer is it's 100% false. All these answers are false. So you guys are pretty good about this, that 10% of children involved in bully victim problems in elementary or middle school. There's a lot more than 10%. We're going to talk about that. Children are more likely to be bullied in middle school than in elementary school. That's false. Most bullying is in elementary school. Most bullying is physical in nature. Most people get that one right. Girls bully just as much as boys. They just bully differently. Most people do answer this incorrectly. The answer is false. The answer is false. Boys bully about twice as much as girls. Okay, so everybody needs to hear that one. So 40 of you answered this true, and we're not trying to give you a hard time because it's anonymous, but you're incorrect about that. Boys bully about twice as much as girls. Now, boys and girls get bullied about the same amount, but the bullying's being done about twice as much by boys. And then everybody got this one right. Boys are more likely to be involved in cyberbullying. Okay. The vast majority of children tell us teacher or other member of the school staff. Most of you got that one correct, that that's false. Bullying is just as likely on the way to and from school as during school hours. This one is false. It's much more likely to be done during school hours, and more likely, the most common place when we do these tests is in the classroom with the teacher present. That's the most common place for bullying to happen. Not in the classroom when the teacher leaves, but in the classroom when the teacher is present. Okay? Most students who observe bullying don't think they should get involved. This is false. Most students think they should get involved, and we're going to see those. Answers pretty soon. Okay, and that's the results. Oh, I guess I had to share them. I haven't done one of these polls until today, guys. So this is new for me. I apologize about that. So those are the answers. So all these ones that you answered, this one you guys got mostly right. The big one was here. Girls bully just as much as boys. They do it differently. That is false. This one, bullying is just as likely on the way to or from school. That one's false. And then this one, almost everybody answered true. They do think they should get involved. Most kids think they should get involved. Okay, so we're gonna go through these answers. Let's see. Let me get rid of this poll. Okay. All right. So what next? So why do we care about bullying prevention? This is the most common danger kids face. So you might think that the worst danger versus common danger. The worst danger is probably them getting abducted or getting hurt. Of course, that's a worst danger, but that's not as common. The serious bullying impacts 1 out of 3 kids. Teachers only catch 5%. This is really important. Now, teachers, Master Oliver, you can answer some of those questions. I need to not pay attention. Master Oliver's got the answers to the questions. Somebody asked what the source of the poll is. That the poll are questions from the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program that was mentioned on the top. So all that data comes from very big sets of research. Okay, that's the biggest set of data that we have on bullying prevention that's ever been done. I think their data set now is about 750,000 samples.
And the one question, Master Moody, is that doesn't seem to address cyberbullying. Is that an accurate statement? That
well, there's one question on cyberbullying that we covered. That was on whether boys cyberbully more than girls.
Right, but that's likely to occur outside school hours.
No, that happens in school hours too.
Yeah,
because they have access to their cell phones.
Right.
No, they have access to their cell phones. When they're at home, they could do it as well, but that happens absolutely during school hours. Kids have access to their cell phones, and a lot of teachers don't take them away. And even what was very interesting when this data, the research started there, I'm gonna each of their serve with the static. When the research was started early, it was before they had smartphones. And kids were still doing cyberbullying, but it was happening with text messaging. And it was on the, the flip phones that you had to hit they had you had 3 letters to get to do the texting. And, you know, you had it A, B, C to be able to get A, B, or C. And they were still texting from behind their backs. So kids were good enough at texting to be able to, you know, send mean text messages, even without how easy it is to text message now with smartphones. So cyberbullying was happening even quite a long time ago. Okay, teachers only catch 5% of bullying behavior. Let me talk about that. So when you ask teachers, do they catch bullying behavior or they catch bad behavior? This is a very common thing for teachers to say, no, we're catching this behavior all the time. And the tendency when you see this statistic is to blame teachers. We're not blaming teachers whatsoever. What is tending to happen is teachers are not educated on what bullying is and what bullying isn't. So we're going to go over that. And so what they do is they mix this up with fighting. So fighting and bullying are completely different, and you have to know the difference between these things. It's really critical. Okay, bullying leads to other problems. So let me just mention quickly, and then we're going to talk about more detailed problems. My screen is coming up slow. So partial list is this coming up quicker for you guys? Are you seeing the list of things, or is it still not up? It's coming up slow. I may have to.
Yeah, it's on the 3rd bullet point.
Okay. We may have to do this a little. I may have to do a little bit different strategy here. All right. Apologize, everybody. We may have to do the. We'll see if this works, and if it doesn't, we'll get another way to make this faster. So I apologize about that. We had tested this, but it ended up not being as fast as we thought. So I've got a backup way to make this faster. Sorry to do this in the middle of the this. Okay, so we'll come back to this if we can't get this to work faster. I'll have it back up. So anyway, the list of other problems is anxiety, as you see. Suicide is really common. Well, common doesn't mean kids are committing suicide at 50% of kids that are bullied. It doesn't mean that. But the rates of suicide for kids that are being bullied is very high percentage-wise. So suicide is, not many kids are committing suicide. That's not very common. But if kids are getting bullied, we see that 4 to 10 times, depending on which research you're looking at. So that is a big deal. That's a big deal. So physical ailments, they get stomach aches, they don't want to go to school. Those kind of problems are huge. Okay. And I apologize, everybody. You have some patience here. I'm going to switch to my other PowerPoint presentation so we can get a better experience for you guys. And that's that is here we go. This is going to go faster. That better? That's better. Okay. Sorry about that. And my plan was not working. Okay, so bullying leads to other problems. We said that. And this is a huge statistic. 60% of kids who are bullies. Now this is, you got to start getting your head around this. I've just given you one statistic. This research was done a little while ago, so it's not quite up to date because they haven't done a comparative study recently. So I'm giving you, I'm admitting this as a researcher myself. I'm giving you that background. But this is a little bit of a crazy statistic. Not crazy that it's not valid, but I want you to get your head around this. 60% of kids who are bullies, this is in middle school, were convicted of a felony. That means convicted. Felony is a big deal. That's like murder, armed robbery. These are serious crimes before the age of 25, 60%. This is from the Olweus Bullying Prevention Program. Again, somebody asked where this source data was from. That's the largest data set we have in bullying prevention that exists. So this is the only study that's been done on longitudinal over time with bullying prevention. So bullying leads to other problems. And what you need to point out is it's not just that kids that get bullied have problems, but kids that bully other kids have major problems. We're not just worried about the kids that are getting bullied. We're really worried about the kids that are bullying other kids too, if that makes sense. We can't work just one side of the problem. It's not just the kids that are bullied. Okay, let's move on. So we've got a lot of stuff to cover today. All states have policies. Now, what you need to do, and you go to olweus.org, you're going to go to Stop Bullying Now is the website that's going to pop up. And you can look at state information. It's going to, stopbullying.gov. It's going to get the state information. So for example, in Arizona, it's Arizona Revised Statute 15-341. If I was going to go to a school right now, and this is a very good hint for you guys that are in business, go there, pull down the state statute, print it out, and if you go to a school, you go there and say, hey, we do some bullying, we do some martial arts classes. Martial arts is great for bullying. You don't have to say you do bullying programs. Just say you do martial arts classes and martial arts is great for bullying. What kind of, how are you compliant with your bullying laws in this state? Well, 100% of the time when I've asked a principal that, they've looked at me with a deer in the headlights look and said, well, what do you mean state laws? They're almost never compliant. The reason they're never compliant is because there's almost no bullying police to make sure that they're compliant. So every state has these laws. You can see that some of these laws are not, some of the laws aren't as strong. So these, unfortunately, Arizona isn't as strong, but the blue ones are stronger laws. The red ones are less strong. And that has to do with the amount of reporting that gets done. But they all have laws. Most have policies. Arizona, for example, doesn't have policies. Colorado doesn't have policies, but the rest of them have policies, and policies and laws are a little bit different. Okay, so let's talk about what bullying is and bullying isn't. This is probably, if you have one thing you need to learn today, this is the most important thing. In everyday language, so kind of what you would say to somebody if you're talking about it. Bullying is when somebody, and these are the key points, repeatedly, so this is a key thing here, repeatedly, and on purpose, It has to be on purpose. So if they say something and they're not intending to do harm, says or does mean or hurtful things to another person who has a hard time defending himself or herself. So that's kind of the phrase that you'd say, but it has these characteristics. It's aggressive. So that means that there was an intention to hurt. So if two people are just fighting and they're arguing about something, I was arguing about my toy. I was arguing about another person. I was arguing about something that happened on the playground. That's not bullying. I didn't like what somebody did. That's not bullying. Now, if I was being aggressive because I wanted to hurt somebody, I had either hurt their feelings, hurt them physically, that would be aggressive behavior. It typically is repeated. Now, the reason they say typically and they don't say always repeated is because you can consider something bullying if it happens just once. The third thing, which is probably the most important thing, is it involves an imbalance of power or strength. So now, for example, the example I give there is if the United States and China were arguing about something, they're both equal power. So if the United States says, hey, you need to do something, and China says, no, we don't want to do something, and they kept arguing about something, well, there's no imbalance of power there. They're both really big countries. They have lots of money. They have both big armies. But if the United States tells Fiji to do something, well, you know, the United States can bully Fiji. They can tell Fiji what to do, and Fiji's going to kind of have to do whatever we say if we decide we want to make Fiji do whatever we say. So that's an example of imbalance of power. So you've got to understand the difference. If you guys as martial arts instructors have an imbalance of power between you and the students, this is something you may not realize could be construed as bullying. Now, if you're not trying to hurt somebody's feelings, that wouldn't be considered bullying, but it's still something we have to be careful of. So bullying has to have these three components. It has to be intended to hurt, it has to involve a pattern of behavior, and it's an imbalance of power or strength. Those three things are really important. Now, this is why teachers don't catch it most of the time. Okay. Master Oliver, were there any questions about that in particular? I was wondering if there was anything. I know there's a lot of questions popping in the Q&A.
Yeah, probably the first one is there a serious correlation between bullying and antisocial behavior?
That's an interesting question. There's a couple answers about that. So there's antisocial behavior, antisocial personality disorder that have to do with mental illness. So if it's mental illness, I'm going to mute you there for the static. But if it's mental illness, then it can be something that is, would that be bullying if somebody has a mental illness? Now, you know, on one hand, somebody would say, well, you know, the kid has an antisocial personality disorder or an antisocial disorder, then do we forgive them for bullying some other kid? Well, not really. I mean, they still need to have some intervention. They still need to have, you know, they still need to do something about that in school. That's different from some kid being antisocial and his behavior is antisocial. The reason that that's important, the reason that that's really important if you were in a school is what I do with that kid's different. If a kid's got a real serious mental disorder, you don't do the same thing as a kid that's being a jerk. So there's two totally different things. And that's why schools often handle this wrong. And that's why we as people often handle this wrong. If a kid's got a serious mental illness, you can't handle it the same way. For example, a kid with autism and he bugs another kid all the time, that would be repeated behavior. And he might be really pushing him. He might be aggressive and he may be bigger than the other kid. So there's an imbalance of power or strength. Is that really bullying? Well, there's not really an intention to hurt. So we need to handle that differently. And that's where teachers don't get a lot of training. So that's why that 5% rule is real, or that 5% statistic is really important. And when I teach this to teachers and show them this, their eyes open up and they really get it. And they go, gee, I never thought of it that way. And they start realizing that conflict resolution, which we teach a lot, conflict resolution is very different than dealing with bullying behavior. And when you understand the difference, then it's very clear. Conflict resolution is totally different. Two people arguing, you manage totally differently than somebody bullying somebody else, because two people arguing, they both have the same level of power versus, so somebody with antisocial behavior, that may not be an imbalance of power. That's a kid being a jerk. And then we just have to deal with the kid being a jerk. Somebody with a mental illness is different than that. Somebody that's bullying has an imbalance of power. It becomes pure abuse. Let me go a little further, and maybe that'll clear up that question as well. So, but yeah, Master Oliver, please, if there's any questions on these kind of things, these are real important concepts to get. Okay. So is it getting worse? This was an updated statistic. The best data we have was done about 8 or 9 years ago because it was the biggest study. And the prevalence is how often this stuff happens. And with the best research tool we have, about 30% of kids are involved in bullying. What that means is about 17% are getting bullied, that's a 16.9, and 19.3% are bullying. So more kids are bullying kids than are getting bullied. More recently, about 20% are bullying other kids. So I'm sorry, this number was supposed to be up here. So more recently getting bullied, this 19 to 20%, this number was supposed to be up here. It's actually 19 to 20% compared to the 17%. So this getting bullied is moving up. This number went in the wrong spot. So this percent of kids getting bullied in some recent studies, I apologize about this number being in the wrong spot, is going up a little bit. Now, when we say getting bullied, this isn't a kid getting bugged one time. This is a kid getting bullied 2 to 3 times a month. So this is pretty frequent. This is almost once a week or more. 2 to 3 times a month or more is the breaking point where they say they're getting bullied. So a kid could be getting bullied once a month and they wouldn't count this in the statistic. So this could be happening a lot more. And it is happening a lot more, but when they measure this stuff, they're trying to measure it at least some criteria so that, you know, they can say, is it severe enough? So this is getting bullied pretty seriously before they count it. So it's happening more than this if you want to understand bullying in a general case. Now, there's an important group of people that you got to understand. And this is one that when people say kids are bullying because of bad self-esteem, kids don't bully because of bad self-esteem. That's one myth that you have to break yourself of. Kids that bully other kids generally have pretty good self-esteem. They don't have bad self-esteem. So when you think about it, when people say the common sense idea is, why do kids bully? Well, they have bad self-esteem, or they're treated bad, or they're treated bad at home. That's not true at all. We'll speak about that in a little bit. However, this group that bully others and were getting bullied, they call them bully victims. There's a small percentage of them. It's not that small. That's 6.3% of the population. They're doing both. These kids are getting bullied and bullying others. They sometimes have bad self-esteem. These kids are kind of a mess. They're having a lot of problems, and we'll talk about those later. Okay, so different kinds of bullying. We'll try to go fast through this because you guys probably know all this. These are other ways that they can bully. Again, you guys, I don't need to read all these off. Indirect bullying might be something you may not think of. Spreading rumors might be one. We've talked about cyberbullying. Social isolation is keeping people out of groups. That's a pretty big deal, even in elementary school, not including somebody in a group. That's, devastating for a lot of kids. Master Olson, Master Barnum, please chip in if you got anything to add on to this. So one thing that you got to understand with bullying is it's not like a kid just getting in a fight. It's not the same impact on a kid. It's much more like a kid getting abused. Because of that imbalance of power, because there's an imbalance of power, the kid is afraid to go to school. The effects of it are measured much more like these other things. If you want to compare it to something, it's not like I'm getting like a fight. And so sometimes the reaction, especially as martial artists, is, well, you know how you deal with bullying, you just knock the other kid down. I had a very prominent martial artist. I won't mention his name. I don't want him to feel bad, but very, very prominent martial artist, has many, many schools. And he told me, I had a cousin, and what I told him to do was knock the other kid down. And that would be the best way to handle, if the other kids bully you. And even some programs that some very prominent martial artists have suggested say that. They say that, well, try to talk to him first and then try to report it. And then if that doesn't work, tackle him or, fight. And that's exactly the opposite of what will work. The reason is because, what do we say? It's an imbalance of power. If you didn't have that imbalance of power, the fighting might work. But what's defining bullying? That there's an imbalance of power. So if there's an imbalance of power like that, you all can't fight them in the first place. It's more like this stuff. In these kind of cases, would you fight? Not really. It'd be pretty hard to do that. So this is an example of why that kind of strategy won't work. Okay? So these are also, in these kind of abuses, all involve basically the same thing. The really scary one is, and this happens in bullying, is the victim blames himself or herself for the abuse. If it's not stopped, this happens all the time. Okay, so this happens with the kids that are getting bullied. It's not important, he didn't mean it. This happens with blaming the victim is very common with principals. We've heard principals say this. Well, the solution is you got bullied because you wore the wrong clothes. You should just not wear those clothes. Why are you wearing those old clothes? You should just laugh it off. Again, if it's an imbalance of power, they're going to go home and think about it like they're getting sexually abused. Think about it like it's domestic violence. Trying to avoid them, that's a good example. That's pretty hard to do in school. Master Oliver?
There was I keep doing that to you. Master Moody, there was a question, could you address your thoughts on the differences between being rude, mean, and bullying, and how those are different from one another?
That's a great question. Well, use the 3 criteria. So is it intended to hurt? Sometimes people are rude. I'm rude with my friends, Master Oliver and I, or Master Thomas and I, or we tease each other all the time. You know, you see us together, we're teasing each other all the time, but we don't have an intention to hurt each other's feelings. So you guys are probably teasing your friends all the time. You could be rude, you could even be mean, but it may not be, number one, intended to hurt somebody's feelings. If it was intended to hurt somebody's feelings, but there's not an imbalance of power, then it really isn't bullying, it's just a fight. So I could be yelling at you, I could be arguing with you, I could be fighting you physically, but there's not an imbalance of power. Then it's just a fight. And then the answer for how you solve that, if you're a teacher or you're a parent or you're a martial arts instructor, is conflict resolution. There's college degrees in conflict resolution. But if there's abuse, like the last slide I showed you, like this kind of situation, how would that possibly work? If it was a domestic violence situation, it was husband and wife, how are you gonna, and the husband's abusing the wife or the wife's abusing the husband, how are you gonna use that conflict resolution to solve that problem? So being rude or being any of the other, disconnect the idea of the method of the abuse, the method of the attack, whether it's yelling at somebody, being rude, punching them, any of that stuff, from the way it's being applied. If the way it's being applied is intending to hurt, repeated over time, and there's an imbalance of power, that last thing is really critical, then it can be bullying. Okay. Now, and Master Barnum and I have developed a program. We've spent some time with this. If it crosses the line and it becomes violent, so that you have to defend yourself, when we teach bullying or we teach this in martial arts, if it crosses the line and the kid's in danger of being hurt, seriously injured, or getting killed, then of course we would suggest a kid would fight. So don't mistake this that we teach martial arts and not fight in a certain case. Of course we would do that if a kid's in danger of serious injury or death. But you can't always do that in a bullying situation, because it just wouldn't work. The kid's already bigger than you. The kid's already got a bunch of friends helping him out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Master Moody, I think people confuse conflict situation, even repetitious conflict of some sort, with what a bullying relationship is.
100%, sir. You're 100% right. You know, every day I have somebody that's in my same class, the same size. I've got a bunch of friends and we argue every day. We just don't like each other. And we fight when we're in PE all the time. And we are mad at each other because one of us got a better grade. We're mad at each other because of whatever. And we're always kind of each other's enemy. Well, that's not bullying. Now, I might go home and tell my mom he's bullying me. And the other guy might go home and tell his mom that he's bullying him. And then they go back and complain to the school that they're bullying each other. But the school needs to understand, or the parents or whoever, this is not bullying because this is conflict. So, and they have to be handled differently. So we need to understand those differences so that we're good at, well, all you guys on the call are much better at it than most people in the world. When you finish this today, you're going to be better than 99% of the population. This is how you really need to handle it. And most programs that handle bullying are usually about, hey, let's all be nice to each other. And those don't work either. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm rushing a little bit. So when you have a bullying situation, and this comes from the Olweus program, which is, again, the best program out there, what roles do kids play in bullying situations? So what most of the time we think about is this H position, well, the kid who's bullied and the kid who's bullying. So there's these two kids. But in any kind of situation that there's other kids around, there's a lot of other kids participating. And one is the kids who are following the bully. I won't read all these out. The supporters that kind of support the bully, the passive supporters. I want to point out these other possible ones here. There's possible defenders, so kids that don't like the bullying. There's a lot of these kids statistically. And then occasionally there's kids that help out the kid who's being bullied. What we want to try to do in a situation, if we were in a school and understand working with schools, is move everybody one spot. So we'd like to move these kids that dislike the bullying but think they should help and don't do it. About a third of kids think it's a bad thing and would like to help, but they don't really get any support from the administration. Again, it's not the administration's fault. it's usually because they don't have the education and don't have the system in place. So if we were working with the school, or I was working with the school as a trainer, again, this is not your strategy as a martial arts school, but again, to understand what you would want to do in a school environment, we want to try to make sure that these guys understand what to do to help in a bullying situation. It might be how they can report it to a teacher. It might be what to do to help the kid out. And we do have some drills we do with our martial arts students. What we teach our martial arts students is, when we see this situation, to go up and say to the kid who's being bullied, hey, come on, let's go, and you don't need any of this. That's it. So if we see a bullying situation, that's a drill that we do with our martial arts students. Come on, man, you don't need any of this, and just take the kid and walk away. We don't go beat this bullying kid up. Then what happens? We get in trouble. We get suspended. That'd be a bad strategy. What we know is, and we'll see later, that our martial arts students, if they become black belts, generally don't get bullied. And they don't get bullied at a better rate than any other program, including any other, this Olweus program, any other program that's ever been invented. So the best thing that a parent can do is have their kid become a black belt. I'll show you how to understand those stats. But we also want to go beyond that, and we want to make all of our kids in this position become defenders of the victim. And that's how we do it. We'll go in more detail on that too. Again, stop me if there's any questions on that, Master Oliver. There's probably a lot of good things. I'm going pretty fast here for time. There's a lot of stuff to cover. Most people, and people all have you guys all have my email address, by the way, from all the emails I've sent you. You can email me and we can follow up. I'd be happy to do that one-on-one. Everybody should have that. It's seniorsr.master.moody@karatebuilt.com. You've got a bunch of emails from me, so nobody should have any problem getting that. By the way, again, thanks to our sponsors here, and Master Oliver and Master Thomas have really graciously helped with my time to help develop this. MartialArtsWealth.com is where you can see them, and GoToKarate.com/bullying is where you can get a bullying prevention page that helps you market this to your community. So these are both really good resources you guys got to check out afterwards. So we'll talk about that later too. Again, this is.
Would you mind if I just said something? Just with regard to knowing how big this is, and this number might not mean much to a lot of people on here, but currently right now, bullying is searched, as of this month, it is being searched 2.74 million times a month. That is astronomical. That is huge. So you guys have to understand that people are looking for avenues and how to get help. And that's why I really appreciate what Master Moody, Master Barnum, Amanda Olson, Grandmaster Oliver, everybody's playing a role in taking care of this epidemic. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no, that's a lot. That's way more than a lot of other searches that we would be, martial arts or karate or other things that we might be trying to market too. So I didn't know that.
Yeah,
and I'm the bullying guy. So
way more than people are searching for martial arts lessons.
Yes. Yeah. And that's really back to what I said at the beginning when I was showing you those web pages. I only grabbed a sample. I get notified for everything that Google has out on bullying, and I can't even keep up with it. There's so many articles every day. There's many articles, and most of them wrong. By the way, most of them wrong. This is what I hope everybody on the call gets. Most of the things that people say about bullying are wrong. Most of the programs are wrong. Most of the things schools do are wrong. They'll have programs in schools all the time that drive me nuts, because I'll show you one of them later that'll drive you crazy. But they're mostly about feel good, be nice, and most of that doesn't work, guys. That's why martial arts is so good for these kids. So again, most kids are involved in bullying situations. We already mentioned this. 8% were bullied weekly. This is a stat we showed you already. Cyberbullying, this is 3,700 kids were tested. That's a pretty big sample size. Frequency of kids being cyberbullied, 25% of girls and 11% of boys had been cyberbullied. Remember that stat before was who does the bullying. Boys bully more than girls. That's bullying, not being bullied. This is how many had bullied at least once. The frequency of the boys is higher. So these guys are doing it a lot more. And 2 times as much offline as online. So there's still a lot more offline bullying as online. Okay, and that's in the 6th to 8th grade age range. So even in that age range, which you'd think they'd be doing a little bit more online, 6th to 8th grade, they're still doing quite a bit offline. So the problem with understanding cyberbullying is important, and that's been a big thing in the news lately. But one of the things you may not understand, or you may, is that the difference here is that it's anonymous. The big deal is because it's anonymous, now you end up having this inhibition is gone. They're not worried about if they bully somebody at school, now they're not going to be, they're not going to get caught. So people can set up a fake Facebook page. They can set up a fake email address really easily. It doesn't take them anything. They can, Facebook's having a big problem with this, in fact, because I was at a bullying prevention conference and Facebook themselves were there and they were responding to this, and they don't really have an answer because they don't have any way to track this. So basically they said, well, parents, you got to watch your kids. Well, you know, yeah, good luck with that. That's difficult. So this is a big problem, and it's only going to get worse. There's the tools that are in place are okay, but they're not really great. So it's very difficult. This is a very difficult problem to deal with. One problem, I'll give you an example. We were teaching this, Master Barnum and I were teaching a seminar to 120 martial arts school owners. And this is something we can teach your group too, if you have a group that you want us to work with. But we were teaching 120 school owners, and we had a kid there that happened, a 13-year-old, I think, that was there. And we were talking about this, and he says, "Oh, this happened to me. I was hacked." We go, "What do you mean?" Well, somebody took his cell phone and they cloned his cell phone. Now, I'm an engineer. My undergraduate degree is in engineering. I couldn't do this. I mean, I don't know how. I'm a pretty technical guy. I'm a geeky guy, and I couldn't do this. And some 13-year-old hacked his cell phone, cloned his cell phone, and started sending texts out from the cloned cell phone. This poor kid got in major trouble that he was sending all these horrible text messages to everybody in the school, and nobody believed him because it was, you know, his phone number that had the information going out. So this is a really difficult problem to deal with. So even Facebook is really faced with no answers. They don't really have a very good answer for dealing with this.
Hey, Master Moody, a couple of questions that are relevant to the subject right now. One was, are these stats just U.S. or are they Canada, Europe, international?
Some of the stats are international. So like the overall prevalence of bullying is international. The 60% felony stat is international. This one here is U.S.
Okay, and then the other one was, is there any data behind why boys bully more than girls, other than what we might assume?
You know, it's a really good question. And when you look at data, we like to say why. But what we really know whenever you look at data, people will always try to have a causal explanation. But the real answer is the data. We know the data. And then we infer causality from the data. So we infer why. So I don't know of any good explanation that people have for, so the answer is I don't have a good explanation that I would give you that I would rely on why boys are doing it more than girls. You could come up with a lot of causal explanations, but we don't have a lot of good reasons for them. What we do know is, and that's a really common, all you guys answered that question wrong, or at least most of you guys answered the question wrong, that girls bully just as much as boys. That's a really common one that people get wrong. The reason we kind of trick you with that test is because to kind of get people thinking that most of the time you don't know the right answers for these things, and it does make us think the wrong way. Now, it doesn't mean that girls don't bully. For example, in that question, with that question, they do, but it is just different. But yeah, so I'd encourage you when you look at data, whenever you look at some of this data, to not try to assign a reason for it all the time. What we want to try to do, the only way you can figure a reason out really is if you fix it. So if you fix it, then you know that what you fixed the thing that was the reason, if that makes sense, you know? So hopefully that answered it. I kind of went around and around. I'm being a little probably too technical about that. So boys and girls, this kind of alludes to this. So there's some similarities and some differences. Again, boys bully more than girls. depends on the study. Almost all the meta-analysis, the big analysis say boys bully about twice as much. No big surprise. Boys are more physical. Girls do a lot of this, a lot more social bullying. Girls are bullied primarily. Boys almost always are bullied by boys, and then girls get bullied by both. So girls are really, this is really scary. Let me just kind of skip through this one. The biggest fear was being teased or made fun of, but this is comparing their fears. They were 30 times more afraid of being teased or made fun of than school grades. 30 times. So they're going to school, and these guys are really, really afraid of being teased or made fun of. They're not that worried about school grades. So if you're worried about your kids' school grades, but they're getting teased or made fun of, or this is a problem, you know, this would be something to fix before their school grades. If this is a problem, you're not going to get them, they're not going to be worried about A's. All right, so here's some stats about bullying versus elementary, middle school kids. Again, you can see that it goes down through high school. High school kids are usually better. You know, you don't think that because you see a lot of movies that high school kids do crazy things, but the high school kids are generally better. Kids that are targeted, again, the idea, hopefully I don't need to reiterate this, bullying's a big deal. It doesn't make you a stronger person. It's not like Nietzsche. Short term, these are some problems that they have. Thoughts of suicide, that's a big deal. You can see tons of articles. So it's something you got to attack. Long-term effects, I just want to point out a couple big things here. The depression scale here, moderate indication, this is bullied versus not bullied. You can see that in almost all the cases, it's like 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 worse if your kid's been bullied versus not bullied. This one for depression, look at the strong indication. 16 to 2, that's 8 times more, is that right? Yeah, about 8 times more strong indication of bullying. Now, if you've ever taken one of those depression scales, like how depressed are you, sometimes you have to take those for, you know, you go to the doctor and they do a full checkup and they're asking you about depression, whether you're depressed or not, you're just doing a full checkup. You know, I had to take that for my degree program, and it's scary. There's all these things. You'd have a death in the family, and then you have a score in the end. Strong indication is like hard to get, and it means you're like suicidal. You're like having a really, really bad day. This is a serious, serious problem. They're 8 times more likely. This means of the kids that are bullied, 16%, that's a lot. That's 16 out of 100 are like in really bad shape. So this is a big deal, and this is long-term effects. This doesn't mean that they, you know, got bullied a couple times last week and they're really bummed out. This means that over time they're pretty depressed. Bullied kids, remember, we're not just worried about the kids who are bullying, we're worried about the kids who bully other kids. They have a lot of problems. Don't get caught up in the myth that they're outcasts, they're loners. Those bully victims are, but not the ones who generally do the bullying. They're like popular kids. They're popular kids with a lot of self-esteem. Those are the kids that bully most of the time. If you remember your own high school or your own junior high or your own elementary school, you probably remember those were the kids that gave you more of a hard time. So, but these kids do have problems. If we allow them to bully, this is kind of the problem. Now I'll skip ahead for some of the stats we're going to show you on martial arts. Go ahead, Matt.
A quick question on the Q&A here. Is sexual harassment an area that's included in these stats, and does that attribute any of the differences? That was a question.
Harassment. So that's a good question. Sexual harassment crosses the line into violence. So sexual harassment is a legal matter, and so that's something that you need to report to the police and report to the school, and so that is past bullying. So it's beyond bullying. That's in danger. That's serious injury. So now, if somebody was saying something, and it depends on the degree, it depends on the level of what they're saying, but you know, sexual harassment or sexual attacks, or you know, if it crosses a line, then it turns into violence. And when it crosses the line to be violent, then it turns into something that you would get the administration, or if it was an adult bullying situation, you would, you know, get the authorities or the proper, you'd go through the proper channels. You wouldn't deal with it like a bullying situation. Okay, that makes sense. So hopefully that makes sense with everybody. Back to kids who bully. These are some of the problems that they have. So we have to deal with them too. Remember, 60% of kids who bully in middle school can get convicted of a felony. We can't just let these kids continue, not just because they're being jerks, but also because they are going to have future problems. We have to deal with their behavior. This was the mind-blowing stat that I mentioned before, but this is the other mind-blowing stat. 40% of these kids had 3 or more convictions. Okay, bullies were 4 times as likely to have multiple convictions. So 3 or more convictions by the age of 24. That's a lot of convictions. 40%. That's crazy. It's hard to get convicted. Most of the time before 24, they plea out to like a misdemeanor or something. This is like crazy. So we've got to fix this problem earlier. Okay, so again, kids who bully other kids. I'm sorry, I want to mention this again. Don't forget, they're not the passive, or they're not the loners. They're not the bad self-esteem kids. They're generally popular kids. Kids who get bullied, a lot of times they're passive. A lot of times they lack confidence. This is probably giving a preview of why martial arts helps them a lot. The bully victims, I want to spend a minute on them. Again, 6% get bullied and are bullying other kids. They have a lot of problems in school. Sometimes these can be kids with some special needs, kids with autism in certain cases. We did our autism webinar before. Sometimes they have social emotional issues. Most of the time the teachers don't like these kids, so they have other issues that the teachers kind of get frustrated with them. So they're having other issues. These kids often are, well, let me back up. The kids that are, they have for shooter cases, like the Virginia Tech shooter, the cases in Colorado that they've had, when they look back at their history, a lot of times they had similarities to these kids when they were in school. These are kids we've really got to address. These are big problems, and obviously they're problems in the environment at that moment. But we've got to take care of these kids. I went the other way. Okay, we already talked about this. This is an important stat. Again, we mentioned 38% don't think they should do anything, but if you add up 27% and 35%, so the kids that think they should do something, that's what, 62% think that they should help or they help. But they usually, I haven't triggered the stat yet, usually they don't think the teachers will do anything. Where does bullying occur? Here's where bullying occurs, the most common place. I mentioned before, teachers present in the classroom. These are other places that bullying occurs. Hallways and stairwells. You notice that these areas here, hallways and stairwells, these are common places that there's no cameras. Cafeterias, common restrooms, no cameras. Okay, so these are common places. This is the number one though. Whenever I've done work with schools directly and done an Olweus program, because I'm an Olweus trainer, I can do the actual Olweus program with schools. This has been the number one with the teacher present. Okay. Most kids don't report bullying. Here's why kids don't report bullying. 66% didn't think the staff responded. Only 6% thought the staff responded. This was an older study, but it's the newest one. It's the newest big one that we have. And this may have improved, but again, I don't have better data for this one because this is the only one that's big. It was a big study. This is 9th graders. This is a newer study. This one said 35% thought the teachers were interested, but look at how many didn't think they were interested if you add these up. They didn't know or felt the teachers were not interested. That 65% weren't sure or didn't think the teachers were interested. That's pretty scary. Okay, adults bully kids. This is something I invite you guys to think about a little bit as martial arts instructors. This doesn't mean you're doing it, but this is something to maybe have in your instructor program that you want to make sure that you don't, I'm sure you're not using the words idiot or baby, okay? But are there words that you use, or there things that you say to students, or there things not you guys, but your instructors might say that may be construed by a student this way, because you do have a severe major imbalance of power. So I would encourage you, if students say these things, that the teacher, which I'm sure the teachers never intend to hurt students' feelings. So these are examples from students where teachers, you know, end up coming across like they're bullying a kid. Again, you're not intending to hurt them, but this is something I'd encourage you to do.
And Master Moody, I'll weave together 2 or 3 questions here.
Right.
Is there good data and good studies on the background that leads up to somebody being a bully, right? You know, you mentioned the shooter case. It's one of those things I've paid a lot of attention to. Huge percentage of them are in single parent, no dad present households, for instance. Is there any good data on what leads somebody to be a bully, and what the, you know, if any potential solutions that lead from the data on solving that?
Well, we'll talk about the solutions in a second, but what I'll tell you is this: it's an interesting. So there's bully victims and bullies. So 2 different cases. The kids that are bullying, a really good reason to bully is because it makes you more popular.
Mm-hmm.
If I am more powerful in a school, I'm mute you there, sir. If I'm more powerful in a school, then I would tend to be more popular. So if I'm making fun of other kids and the other kids appreciate that, and I look like I'm stronger, then it's kind of Darwinistic that I am more popular, especially if I don't get in trouble for that. I don't have any negative consequences. So what we need to do as a Master Oliver, could you mute yourself if you're not talking? I can't mute you for some reason. Thank you, sir. But if you are bullying other kids, if you're making fun of them and you're funny, and that happens, and you look like you're stronger, it tends to make you more popular. That's a big reason why kids bully other kids. So it puts them higher in the social scale. There's benefits of this. If the school doesn't respond to that, then there's no downside. So that's a good reason to bully other kids, and kids learn to do that, and kids learn to continue to do that. So there's not really anything that leads up to that, other than that ends up being a positive benefit in society, not just American society, but other societies all over the world. It's not you know, any kind of Western thing. We see this in preschool studies in Japan. So it's not common to us. As far as the bully victim cases, those tend to have something earlier to cause this kind of bully victim issue. As we mentioned before, they've got some other developmental issues. They tend to have some other thing going on, what the psychologists call a comorbid issue. So there's some other kind of issue going on with them that puts them in a situation where they're getting bullied, and then they also bully other kids. So something else is going on there. So it may not be one particular thing. There's a variety of things that might be happening, often a developmental issue. Okay, there could be something else. So if a kid, for example, has, like there was one kid, I sent an email out on one kid that was called a monster at school because he had the facial issue, and the dad did an amazing video, and he kind of called the kids out on it, or the school out on it, and it was really nice. It was a really touching story and tragic story, but it was wonderful kind of how it ended. The cute little kid, and that if he's getting bullied, but he doesn't have any other issues, like he doesn't have a developmental issue, he wouldn't then take it to the point of him feeling like he needs to bully another kid to be more popular. So he didn't have that reaction. But let's say a kid had a developmental issue. Maybe he has a case of autism, and then he thinks he needs to pick on the other kids that aren't as big as him. Then that becomes where the problem occurs. So that's a long answer to the question. But usually there's also some other developmental issue going on with those kids.
Yeah, and there's another comment. There's 32 comments, some of which are helpful, a lot of which are not helpful on the topic. But one that I might point out is that there's a lot of sidewalk psychology going on. The thing that's unique about what you're covering here, Master Moody, what we're covering, is it's all data driven, and it's by the foremost authorities in this field. What does happen, I think we would all agree, is seemingly all martial artists have an opinion about this. Usually their opinion is unrelated to the data or the deep-rooted proof that goes with that data.
Yes, sir. And you know, our tendency, not just as martial artists, but like dads want their kids to like, you know, like push the other kid down, and then everybody will, you see movies where you push the other kid down and then everybody thinks you're the tough kid at school, and then everything's good and everybody likes you, and you get the girl when you're in high school. That's not reality for a real bullying situation in almost all cases. It might have happened once in a while, you know, I mean, it's not that it couldn't happen, but it's not likely. And for some of you guys, it may be that that's the basis of what you're teaching right now. And I'm sorry if I'm dissuading you from that being the reality of what's really going to work, or that's really the way that bullying is. But you know, let's move on from there, and I'll kind of show you how you can make this work. And
well, that's a big difference from teaching conflict resolution to dealing kids with how to deal with bullies, because they are very different things.
Well, the great thing about this, what you're going to learn here as we finish, and I know we got a lot to cover still, is if you focus on teaching really good martial arts and you understand these things, the real focus is on teaching great martial arts and having great character development. And by the time they get to black belt, what we've learned is you've reduced the likelihood that they're going to get bullied more than any other of these school bullying prevention programs that have ever existed. That's what's amazing about this, and that's what my research showed. So that's what you can kind of tag on to, and I can help you with that. So that's what's great about it. What really amounts to is you don't have to do anything special. You have to just teach really good martial arts kind of the way you're doing. So that's what's exciting. Okay, so here's some examples. Again, I invite you to do this. Let me show you something really quick. Hopefully this will work. We won't have technical problems with it right now. Let me see if this will work.
This has just come upon a bullying problem in the schoolyard.
Is there anybody else picking on you? No. It's just with Melvin?
I want everybody to watch this and see if this is correct.
You leave me alone.
Process.
I'm tired of this. Okay, now you gotta say a brave voice. I gotta hear a braver voice than that.
Denise doesn't fix the problem. She helps William practice how to stand up to Melvin.
Okay, try it again. Look right in my eyes. Right in my eyes. Right in my eyes. Say it again. Please leave me alone, Melvin. Please leave me alone, Melvin. Oh, you're ready. Let's do it. William has something he wants to say to you. I want you to look right at Melvin. I mean at William. And I want you to listen, and I don't want you to say anything while he's talking. You understand? William? I'm sorry. What were you going to say? What did we practice? Right in his eyes. Would you please leave me alone? So maybe what you need to do is really think, both of you need to think about staying away from each other until you're ready to be friends. How's that sound? Can you guys shake hands? All right, back into class. William, are you ready? I'm proud of you. And Melvin, I'm proud of you for listening, okay? You did a good job too. I want both of you to try and make this work.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit, and I invite Master Olson, Master Barnum here for the comments. I don't know if Master Olson's seen that video before. Based on what you've seen, Master Olson, what did you see was right or wrong about that? You got to unmute. Okay.
There we go. Sorry. I'm just a little taken aback, to be honest with you, at the moment.
Okay.
For her to tell the kid who was being the bully that she was proud of him. I mean, he barely reached out to shake the hand. You know, there was no consequence for him at all.
Right. So
None.
Right. What else did you guys think? Master Thomas, Master Barnum? I know Master Oliver's seen this before, so he knows the kind of outcomes of this.
Well, I kind of felt, I had not seen it before, and I kind of felt like she was making it seem like it was his fault because he wasn't standing up for himself.
Okay. Master Thomas, Master Barnum, what do you guys think?
Well, I know that in this particular case, they made the bully and the child that was being bullied confront each other, and that's not how you do it. You kind of separate them because the one that's being bullied becomes more afraid, doesn't want to say the right thing or say what it is. So that's not how you handle bullying. It's just
Right.
totally wrong.
Right. So what do we think is going to happen to, Master Olson, maybe since you haven't seen the video, I'll ask you, what do you think is going to happen to Melvin? Melvin was the kid who was bullied, right? And then who was the other kid? William. William was the kid who was getting bullied, and Melvin was the kid who was bullying, I think. So what do you think is going to happen to William later?
Well, the child that was being bullied,
Yeah.
I think he's going to get bullied even more.
I think he's going to get beat up.
Yeah, he's going to get in, he knows he's in danger, and this teacher isn't, I mean, he knows it a lot better than she does.
Yeah. So the teacher, and by the way, what everybody on the call should understand is this was a video that was done originally. The voiceover wasn't for this, but the original video was done, Master Barnum may not know this, to show how to handle bullying. The original video was shown for that, was filmed for that. So people really showed, they were using this as a training video. This is a horrible intervention because what everybody mentioned the right things. The handshake, if you notice the handshake, Melvin and William they're not gonna get along better. They're not gonna be friends. That's not what's gonna happen here. What's gonna happen is they made the situation much worse. Who did the teacher, Master Olson, who did you think the teacher was nicer to? The bully or the victim?
Oh, she was definitely nicer to the bully. I mean, she was in the face of the victim, and you need to do this, and you need to do that, and you need to do this. And then she looks at the bully and says, I'm proud of you. He said 0 words, had no interest in resolving this at all. I mean,
Right.
he's still the winner.
Right. So the idea is this was an okay process if it was conflict resolution. If they were fighting and she yanked them apart and she said, look, guys, this is stupid. You got to be friends, shake hands, bonked them on the head, I suppose. I don't think you can do that anymore. But, bonked them on the head like she did and said, quit messing around. Don't do this anymore. Go be friends. Get out of here. Probably be okay. Maybe they fight again. It wouldn't really matter because it's not an imbalance of power. It's like not a big deal. But now William's going to get the snot beat out of him later. It's going to be a big problem, right? It was totally the opposite of what they should do. But this is very common how people handle the situation. They try to have people talk. In fact, I've known martial arts systems that are being sold out there, and we're not selling the system. We're giving this away for free so you guys understand and do the right thing. But that are being sold that kind of tell people to do that. Have them talk first. It's not going to work because of the imbalance of power, because that's what is going on. I'm not trying to mess anybody's deal up at all. We just want to educate people the right way. Anything else to add there, Master Barnum? Because you're an expert at you're an expert at this.
No, I think that's one of the problems with how children do get bullied, because so many people don't know how to handle the situation. And I know we have some questions on that because we're talking about all the different statistics, and I think people are interested in those answers. So.
Certainly. And we can answer any of those that we need to. So let me go on, and Master Oliver, you can interrupt us if we need to answer any of those questions. Thank you, guys.
Maybe one of the points of it's hard to distinguish between conversation and questions, but one of them is within a school, should there be a presentation of standards, or how should the school teach kids what they're allowed and not allowed to do in their interaction with each other and what the standards are?
Well, you probably already got some rules about how they're supposed to, a student oath or student promise at the beginning of class, and you've got some rules about the ways to be polite, the ways that they handle it. I think you just expand on those. Again, if you try to focus too much on just bullying, I don't think that's the right strategy either, because it's not 100% of what you're doing in martial arts. So, we're not trying to focus on that. We're trying to teach good martial arts programs. What you want to make sure you do, though, is if these kind of situations occur, you're not teaching them the wrong things to do. So the wrong thing to do would be knock the kid down. That would be an example of the wrong thing to do. So this is a good.
I guess 3 or 4 of the questions or comments were at an elementary school level. Is them setting more specific policies of how they're supposed to interact.
Yeah.
Is that helpful? And is that part of the problem that they're not?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a great question, but I want to kind of address it in two ways. One is we're not suggesting, I'm not going to suggest at the end of this, and it's really important you guys stay to the end because we've got some suggestions specifically for martial arts. I know we're going a little over time what I expected. I'm not surprised because there's a lot to cover and you guys have got a lot of good questions. But the idea here is not going to be for you guys to be the school consultant. You don't have the time. It took Master Barnum and I went through the Olweus training. It took like 3 full days. It was about $10,000 to do all that training. And there's no money in it for you to do that. But there's a lot of things you can do, which I'll show you exactly what to do. But what is valuable to understand about what the school should do is they need to have exactly what you guys are asking about. They need to have really clear guidelines. And that's exactly what you guys, it's perfect timing. This is what this slide is about. What doesn't work are these kind of things, like simple short-term solutions. What doesn't work is them having a thing where they all write how they're going to be nice to each other. Master Oliver, we were watching your kids' volleyball game. Remember that one time? And then up on the board was all the kids writing how they were going to be nice to each other and how they weren't going to be bullied or bullied. It's like nuts. That's not going to fix the problem because the problem is they're still going to do it. It's normal human behavior. And what you have to do is make sure that it stops when it happens. Group treatment for children who bully. This assumes that the kids are having, the bullies are doing it because they are having low self-esteem. That doesn't work. They're not having anger management issues. These things don't work. Zero tolerance. A bunch of those articles I showed you on the internet was how great it was that programs were having zero tolerance policies. Again, doesn't work. That's like having a zero tolerance policy for eating too much. Well, that's never going to work. People are still going to eat too much sometimes. You can't have zero tolerance policies for that. It's never going to work because it's kind of normal behavior, so we have to manage that. Again, conflict resolution, you just saw a video, that doesn't work. And then problem material. So what does work? What is going to work? And it answers that question. And this is another one that won't work. So this guy, he's called, he changed his name legally to the crazy guy. He legally changed his name to the crazy guy. This guy does a bullying prevention program. You can pay him $8,000 to come to your school, plus expenses, to come to your school and talk. And what he'll do is basically abuse you and bully the kids for about an hour. And then at the end of the hour, he talks about what you ought to do. That's another program. Again, doesn't work. But schools have paid him. He makes a living doing this. I guess, maybe he has to finance his tattoos or something, but he legally changed his name to the crazy guy. I've got his name written down somewhere where it was before. So again, these kind of programs are widespread. They're all over the place. Schools will pay for this stuff, even though there's no evidence that work. Here's some programs that do work. I won't read them all. These are all programs that do have some evidence base. They're other than the Olweus program. These all do have some value. We're going to be able to publish this video to all the guys that are on here. You're going to get this later so you can read through these. So these are good for you to know about because if the school has these programs, you can get a little familiar about them and read about them. My professor actually invented this first one, the bullying prevention and positive behavior. The Olweus program is the best one that's been tested. The best time they ever did it, in the best example ever, was a 62% reduction in people being bullied. But that was the best case ever done. And 33% reduction in bullying others. So even the best program ever done is still only going to reduce it partially. So there's a zero tolerance policy, as you can see, is ridiculous because if you have zero tolerance, what's going to happen is the only time you're going to enforce it is when it's really severe. Because all the day-to-day stuff, you can't. If you're going to suspend a kid because he's bullying, well, you're not going to suspend a kid because he's doing something minor because that's just too severe of a penalty. So what you need is enough of a system that can manage issues when they're small and when they're big, okay? So this is another good program, and that's what our stats are usually based on because this has the best research basis. Okay, so what should we do? So now this is really important. This is the study that I did. This was for my doctoral dissertation, so that kind of is where my expertise is. And we really asked these two questions. We studied many, many schools. We had about 17 schools across the country that we looked at, and they all gave me a lot of samples from all the students they had at white belt and at black belt and in between. And we asked these questions. These were the main two questions. If they took martial arts, do they get bullied less? Okay, and if they took martial arts, do they bully other kids less? Those are the main two things. Do they get bullied less, and do they bully other kids less? Or do they bully other kids less? And here's all the stats. If you want to read these later, you can. These are pretty common stats for martial arts schools. 35% girls, 65% boys. There's a median income. Most of them were college graduates. And there's plenty of kids. This sample size of this number, you might say that's not that many. That's plenty of them for this type of study to get statistically significant stats for most of it. So I'll show you kind of what the data is. I won't go through all this. You guys probably don't care about the stats. You can read it later, or again, email me if anybody wants to ask me about the statistics or anything like that. But the one thing that you want to look at is here. This is the total, doesn't really matter. Beginners, this is this column, and the black belts. So they weren't bullied. This is the kids that weren't bullied. Here's the number. And this is the kids that weren't bullied as black belts. So you can see that when they're white belts or black belts, they're not getting bullied very much. Also, this number, they're getting bullied 2 to 3 times a week, beginners and advanced, much less. So let me just show you these stats here. This is the easier number to remember. So 27%. If you remember the number before, the average percentage of kids that are getting bullied is, in the normal study, in the normal average, is 17%. So it's almost 2 times white belts coming to your school. This doesn't really have anything to do with the type of schools I studied. It's what we generally would expect is one martial arts school is probably the same as another when people are interested in it. So it's about the same number of kids are going to come to your school versus our schools versus the schools I studied. 27% of kids are coming to your school that are getting bullied. That's almost twice as many. It's about 60%, 70% more than the national average. So this is important. More kids are coming to your schools that are getting bullied than the general population. So you get a lot of kids that are getting bullied. What we're going to see later is the parents don't know that they're getting bullied. They think they're getting bullied about the same proportion. So they're not coming to you and saying, hey, I'm bringing my kid in because he's getting bullied. That's not what you're going to hear. But they are getting bullied at a lot higher percentage than normal. What's the result is that the advanced students, that means black belts or higher, they're only getting bullied 10%. So that's 64% less. If you remember, 62% was the best program in the country that's ever been done. Most of them are a lot worse than that. So when they become a black belt, they're getting bullied 64% less. So see those two numbers, 27% and 64. Those are the ones you got to remember. 64% less means that when they become a black belt, they're getting bullied 64% less than when the average kid that started. Okay, so that's a big achievement. So when you get your kid in and they become a black belt or higher, they're getting bullied a lot less. Now, there's kind of the combined stats there. Now, kids bullying, here's the problem. Here's the problem for me to measure it when I did my study. Hardly any kids come in that are bullying other kids. So when we do statistics, we look at statistical significance is the number that you use. And because only 4% of kids bully other kids that come to martial arts, in other words, kids aren't really choosing martial arts if they're bullying other kids. So we don't get hardly anybody that bullies other kids coming to martial arts. It was reduced from 4% to 1%, but because we only had 2 to start and 1 to finish, it's not enough for us to measure. So we can't really say, even though there's a 68% reduction in bullying other kids, we can't really tell. We did some other follow-up research, but we think that we reduced bullying quite a bit, but we can't statistically say that we did that. But we can say we reduced bullying, being bullied. We can't say we reduced bullying officially, okay? So that's our academics. So what we'll say is that compared to others, well, here's some other stats. I probably shouldn't read all these for time. This is some other academic stuff you can read. So this is the big deal that I already said. Bullying was reduced by getting a black belt, 64%. That's a big deal. You should be spreading that around. You can download again, if you want to email me on any of this, you can email me. You can download my dissertation from the internet. You can search for me. And again, email me for any of that if you want it. We can have a one-on-one conversation. You're welcome to do that. Beginner parents think their kids were only bullied 4% of the time. 4%. So you're hardly ever going to get these parents coming and saying, my kid's being bullied. The kids, 27%. That's what they reported. The kids reported this. Okay. So again, here's some other stats for more parent survey. You can read this. 98% of the kids reported their self-concept improved. This is just extra stuff that we researched, that we did some studies on. That's pretty good. Safety skills, 99% reported that we had valuable safety skills in martial arts. So this is some really, really good data that you can read later. All right, that was good stuff. So this is the kind of upside from the research that we did. Okay, it probably reduces bullying. Now, if it increased bullying, this is a big problem you might have. Okay, so people might say that if they do martial arts, they end up like the Cobra Kai school, even though I like the TV show. But if they end up like the Cobra Kai school, like in Karate Kid, and they all turn into the bad Cobra Kai guys, that our research shows that doesn't happen. So we can pretty confidently say that we don't increase bullying. We can't quite say that we reduce it because we just don't have many kids coming in that bully other kids. Okay, but we can pretty confidently say we don't increase bullying. Okay, so we reduce bullying and we do not increase bullying. This is really important because that's a big criticism of martial arts, that we would make kids go fight. Okay.
And two questions that pop up there. When you're doing the research, Master Moody, do people self-identify, self-report that they've done bullying behavior, or how do you get accurate numbers on that?
That's a great question. We use what's called the Olweus Bullying Questionnaire, which is designed to there's the way that research is done with questionnaires like this. It's designed to ask the question in multiple ways about whether you're doing like negative behaviors, and that way they can use multiple multiple answers to the question to determine whether you're really bullying somebody or not. So if you're embarrassed and you're bullying somebody, then it kind of tricks you into answering the negative properly. And we're comparing those numbers against that other study that was millions of people, was lots and lots of, not millions, but lots and lots of people. So that the one that said it was 19% of kids, 19.3% of kids bullied other kids. So we're comparing apples to apples. So all those kids that said 19.3% said they bullied other kids, we're comparing that exact measurement, that exact tool, to this tool that we used. So it's an apples to apples comparison in the measurement we use. So we use the same yardstick, if you will.
And then the other question was, over what period of time would there be that level of reduction? For instance, a school might have a black belt in 2 years. A school might have a black belt in 10 years. Was there a particular period where there was a great reduction in them being bullied, or how long did it take to get to that point?
Yeah, another good question. These were all about schools that had about their black belt in about 3 years.
Okay.
So they were about 3-year black belts. But remember, we were looking at anybody black belt or beyond. So they may have been 2nd degree, 3rd degree, 4th. They could have been, 10 years in the program at that school. So we just looked at numbers. What we expect is kind of a plateau in this particular kind of number. So our expectation, I could get into statistics for a lot, but what we'd expect is a plateau at a certain point. Same with bullying prevention programs. So we didn't worry too much if they were like 3 or 4, 5 years after their black belt. It would have been really hard to collect data just when they just got their black belt. That would have been really difficult to collect the data, just so for ease of collection. If anybody wants to talk statistics, they're welcome to, again, set up a time with me. But again, everybody should be welcome to email me to follow up on some of these things. So here's what we can do. So how do you use this information as a professional? So again, number one, watch out for instructor language. I had that slide before. Make sure your staff doesn't bully other kids or be perceived as bullying other kids. Help kids who are bullied. Use that stopbullying.gov for resources, that olweus.com you can go to, or stopbullying.gov. Great resources there. Extra credit, we made a handout, I'll show you that in a second, train your instructors. So they should all know this information. They should all know this information, take notes, at least some of the stats. How many kids bully, how many kids are bullying other kids, what bullying looks like, what bullying is, that is those three things. Intended to hurt or hurt feelings or hurt physically, that it's usually repeated, doesn't have to be, and that it's an imbalance of power. They should know the difference between that and conflict. At least those things they should know, and you guys should know really well. And train your instructors. So this is a handout we made. If you email me and we have a conversation, then I can help you with constructing some of that. But this information is right from stopbullying.gov. I can kind of walk you through how to create something. We hand this out to schools. We hand this out to kids so that it's not us. We're not giving out our opinion about bullying prevention. We're giving them out some information that's public domain. But you notice at the bottom is our phone number and email and all our good stuff. By the way, this is information on what to do if your kid's being bullied and how to talk with educators at your school about bullying, because many schools don't have bullying prevention programs. Many schools don't know what to do. So this allows you to help your students. If a kid comes in and says they're being bullied, here you go. Here's what to do if you're being bullied, and then here's what to do at your school. So again, you can reach out to us. So more things you could do. Here's some marketing things. Again, one of the best things you really have to do, Master Thomas will talk about this a little bit later, is you must have a bullying prevention page on your website. That's kind of critical. And you know, it needs to be integrated with, the Go-To Karate guys will do one that has all the content that you need. What's critical about that is there's actual keywords that he talked about. That's one thing. And you got to do that the right way, otherwise it won't work at all. So that's something you've got to go to that Go-To Karate/bullying and get. But one of the things you can do is outreach. So you can do a class on confidence, discipline, and being a G. Remember, G is the one that helps the other kid. So here's a little script you can use. Again, I'll send the video out so we don't have to read this in detail. But this is an outreach seminar you can do in your school. We do 3 of these a year where we have a class on bullying prevention, and we promote it for our students to bring their friends, and we promote it in the community. We promote it to schools. All the schools in our area allow us to hand flyers out by email and 4 or 5 times in the schools. Master Oliver's program is great at helping you make sure that you know how to market these and do this really, really well, so that you can get a lot of people to come in and have 100 people come in for one of these events. So in schools, how do you work with schools? Look, don't try to go and be an Olweus trainer. Don't try to be an expert at bullying prevention. I've taught you more today than 98% of educators know. I'm not being negative about it. Educators, they just don't have time to do this in their degree programs. But you're not an Olweus trainer. You're not trained in one of these other programs that I mentioned that are really good, because those take like weeks of training. You have to do certifications. Typically, you have to have a degree in education. I have a Ph.D. in education, so I can get the training on that. Master Barnum is a certified trainer, but she has a bachelor's degree in education. So you usually can't get in to do that, and also there's no money in it. So it won't really help you build your school. So don't do that. What you need to do is have a letter. We call it a partner in education letter. Again, we can help you. I can help you with that in more detail, with all the stuff you can do with schools. And one of the things is bullying prevention. Just one of the things. And when you do bullying prevention with the school, it would be you teaching a class to talk about what these things are and help kids with what to do. And we'll talk a little bit more about what to do, but this is a complementary thing to what they do. So if you know that they're doing an Olweus program, or you know they're doing one of the other programs, the OBPP programs, or one of the other things that I mentioned, you can look that up on their website. And then you can talk about, when you go approach a school, I already know what the program is that they do. And then they can have, like an Olweus program, for example, as student meetings where they discuss topics. You can be the guest person. Believe me, teachers would love for you to come in and take up that 30 minutes that they don't want to have to plan for. And when you do that, you have to do some really specific things we don't have time for today. Again, Master Oliver's a good person to talk to about that, about how to make, if you've ever done like a show and tell or anything like that, most of the time people do that completely wrong. talk to him about how to do that, where you'll get 25% to 50% of those kids to show up at your school the next day. And I'm not kidding about that. That's really very, very easily and real numbers that you can get. I'm just telling you that because I want you to have good results from this. So this is something that you really can do, but you got to make sure that it's not the only thing that you do with the school. It's one of the things, but you can use this. This is the way to use it, not to try to be the bullying prevention guru. Try to be a complement to what they already do. Again, Master Thomas, maybe you should talk about this real quick, about having a bullying prevention page, what they need to do and how they would do it.
Sure. I think where the industry's going, it's not, I wouldn't say think where the industry's going, it's where the industry is right now. People searching, kind of Grandmaster Oliver mentioned it earlier, more people are searching for bullying than they are for martial arts. And that's what he said is exactly the reality of what the world is going to with online marketing. If you are doing your marketing and trying to promote yourself as teaching karate classes, that's not the persona or the behavioral response experience that people are doing and what they're searching for. And that behavioral response is being monitored by so much AI, artificial intelligence now, that we can get some really, really strong data. And it's interesting what people are searching for. And this, what Master Moody's doing here right now, this is unbelievably a very, very large topic. I mean, it is a huge topic. If you look right now, just in some of the data that we're looking at right now, bullying facts is 9.9 thousand searches a month. The bullying in school is 10,000 a month. If you look at all these numbers, those are really big numbers. And it breaks it down to come up with that millions of searches per month. It's all broken down. The top site right now that we're looking at, stopoutbullying.org is the top site. Master Moody mentioned stopbullying.gov. 941 people search for that each month. Now you might say that's not a big number, but if you look across the board in all of the different URLs right now, because I can get every single URL that's being searched for and what they're searching for on there and how many people are actually looking, it's just amazing to see the level of what people are looking for and how to get help. But interesting enough, some of the top ones are about stop bullying, fight back, stuff that Master Moody was basically telling you that's not necessarily a good idea, but these people are going to these sites because they're just uneducated. They just don't understand. So having that presence in your local community with a website page that actually can get you attract, if you will, draw people in to your website based on what they're actually looking for. They're not looking for karate classes. They're looking for solutions. They're looking for answers to their problems, to their pain points, and that's why you want this page on your site. And if you want more information on that, we have some people that'll be able to help you out on that. And you can go to gotokarate.com/bullying, and they'll be able to definitely be able to take care of you. And I'll personally be meeting with anybody on that when it comes to the bullying, because we want to make sure that we want to help you not only attract people within your community, but what Master Moody was saying is getting into your school systems and whatnot, there's going to be some things you can do on that page. And we're going to be offering a 40% discount on that page. So you guys will be able to, you guys will really like and see what it does for your school. You'll really enjoy. It's really going to be a big impact on the communities. And it's not just bully prevention. Keep that in mind. You really need to know why people are coming to your school and what their pain points are. And most of you have been doing this for a long time. You probably already know what those reasons are. That's some of the pages and content you need currently right now on your website.
Right, and what you mentioned is really important, that schools are searching for this stuff too, because they know they have to be compliant with those state laws that we talked about before. And so what's going to be important is that it's very, very easy if you have this kind of content on your website for you to be one of the top things that they find when they're doing searches, when they're searching for bullying prevention programs. Now, I said you're not going to be the program they do for everything, but they're looking for things, for pieces to put in. And they really should be doing like an Olweus program, but that costs them lots of money. And many schools don't commit to that. So if you're in there and you're in the mix and they know you're doing it, when you come in and talk to them, you're going to be somebody that they already recognize, and they may even call you directly from that page. So it's important not just for searches from parents or kids about their kids. it's important from the school point of view. So they have a deadline on that, Master Thomas, to get the 40%. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, that is end of the webinar. Just go to that site, end of today's call. Just go ahead and go there and fill that form out. You'll see it's right on there. Go to cry.com/bullying or go to cry.com/bully prevention. Either one of them there.
Okay, yeah, because it's real quick. You're just getting some information on it. So just make sure you fill out the form. You just have to fill out the form before the end of the webinar, and then you don't. That just gets you the discount if you decide you want to move forward, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Okay. That is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Master Moody, I might anchor in something that he said that was just so important, is in all of your marketing, it doesn't matter whether it's search marketing, direct mail, a TV commercial, or one-to-one, meet somebody in the elevator and you're giving them the elevator pitch, right? Is all sales is, and all marketing is showing people that you have a solution to a problem they already perceive that they have. And what we all try to do is pitch our technical thing without going underneath it and looking for what is it they're trying to solve and showing them that we have the solution to that problem. The general public probably doesn't perceive, we haven't researched this too deeply, probably doesn't perceive that put my kid in the karate, solves them being bullied. And as you said, most of the parents aren't, perceiving their kids are being bullied to begin with, but they're out searching for a solution for a problem. My son has, your son has autism, my son has asthma. I would be searching for a solution for him having less of a hard time with asthma. You'd be searching for a solution for your son with autism, just like a parent who knew their child was being bullied is searching for a solution for bullying.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly right. That's a really good point. Really, everybody should be writing down for all what you said right there is for all their marketing. That's a big point for everything you're doing in your school. Okay. Well, let's go to the next part, and we've got just a little bit more to do here. Other marketing things, be creative. So it's not just schools. You should be talking to churches. Montessori schools are great to work with, or charter schools. Homeschool groups you should look for homeschool, look on the line for homeschool groups, and you can put notices. We put notices of that we have programs available and we have classes available, and we list bullying prevention as a big topic there. And you can make a note that kids that get their black belt, that bullying reduces, getting your black belt reduces bullying more than any other school-based program, or getting your black belt reduces bullying, just say that. So that's true because you got some research to back it up now and you understand the problem. Okay, somebody made a question here. Hearing we need to do something, no suggestions on what to do. So now you've got some suggestions. So hopefully when people are asking questions, they listen to the whole thing here. So businesses that are pro-community. So we've got a lot of businesses out there, or even the mayor or the community leaders that are talking about doing stuff in the community. These guys always spout words about bullying. And if you talk to them about these kind of topics, then you can be one of the experts. And when they have a bullying rally or they have some kind of bullying thing, you can be the one that they talk to. And unfortunately, if there's a negative event, like some of the ones that I gave you as an example with the websites or the web pages that I listed, where unfortunately a child in the Bronx committed suicide and their parents are suing the school. I don't want you to take advantage of those situations, but there's going to be people that start having events because of that, and they want to try to fix the problem, which is good. They should be calling you. They should be knowing that you care about this topic, and now you understand the topic and you know what really is going on, and you're not going to say the wrong message. Like, if their kid's bullying you, knock them down. You don't want to say those messages. You understand what's happening at the same time. So when bullying incidents happen, you can do press releases, and there's other things you can. What we do is we bake it into our intro process. So when we just add this extra phrase. We're going to make sure you help with your kid's future by helping them stay safe mentally and physically. So this is a phrase we use. We want to help you with the most common danger your kid faces, which is being bullied. And then we just mention that as one of the things so they know that this is a topic that we're covering. So this is something you can do you can add to your sales. Okay, so I have a minute. I'll take as long as you guys need. We went 2 hours, so we've got about I guess we might as well finish at 2 hours, so we got about 4 or 5 minutes. Now you know a ton about bullying. You should know what schools do so that you know how to work with elementary schools. And now hopefully you know what you can do. If you have any further follow-up work you want to do, email me. You've got a couple of resources to use. One, you can email me. You also have plenty of email, plenty of my contact information by email. You should take advantage of those two resources. Go to karate.com/bullying and martialartswealth.com so you can get those resources to help you with your school. But what other last questions do we have, Master Oliver?
Well, you know, there's again, distinguishing questions from commentary, but there's an awful lot of presupposition among the commentary, US and Europe as well, that schools deny that this exists, that it's difficult to make headway with public schools and so forth. You know, what we hear a lot is my school won't let me do it, or my school doesn't believe that that's a problem or whatever. And we have tremendous success in almost 100% of the cases with making inroads into public elementary and middle schools and high schools, but mostly elementary schools, and showing principals and teachers the value of what we're providing for the kids. And I just see a lot of my schools deny it. They won't let me do anything. They deny there's a problem. I see the opposite, is even if the principal or the PE teacher, whatever it is, doesn't think that their school has a problem, which they're probably deluded, is there's a lot of pressure from above, state and district level, for them to make changes. And there's a lot of pressure from the media for them to. And even if they feel like they're giving it lip service, we still have a solution and the methodology to communicate with them. The other thing that I might anchor back, Master Moody, is that you said, I see a lot of martial artists trying to become the expert and go in and educate people in a way that isn't bringing students into their school. And having, you know, taught, I don't know, probably 500,000 kids or more in elementary schools, if you don't ultimately transition them into being a student with you and having them for 3 or 4 or 5 years so you can have a long-term impact, that little one-day lecture or that little presentation you do to our teachers is mostly in one ear, out the other, and you've done yourself a disservice and you've done them a disservice. So I wish everybody would get over the hesitation of going out and doing these things as a benefit to the school, the teachers, the families, but also learn how to transition those students into your school. If you do a good job, and we teach people how to do a great job, you should never be shy about your trying to share with everybody in the community the incredible value of training in martial arts with you or with somebody else that's credible. And I see so many times they're shy about that and feel like getting into the school is difficult. That there were.
Well, can I follow up before you ask the other question on the comment? I think that we've got some other good comments here, sir. I think what I'd also add to that is I think a lot of people say that, well, the school doesn't let us do this or the school doesn't let us do that, whether it's bullying or something else, because they've tried and they've gotten one no. And I think what you do is such a good job of, and Master Smith and the team, and Master Olson, you could probably back, because you're one of Master Oliver's clients too, is you do such a good job of having them get through those roadblocks, because there's 20 different ways to work with the school. And so I think I emphasize, there's two things to back up what you said. Isn't what we just said that the way that you help the kids keep from getting bullied is have them become black belts?
Yeah.
See, that's my mission here, guys. You understanding the problem. Because if you don't understand the problem, when you create black belts, they're going to have the wrong idea about them. If you don't understand what I taught you, then you're going to teach black belts incorrectly. But then when they become black belts, they're going to be bullied less. Not because they're tough fighters, but because they're going to be more confident, better developed people, and they understand what's going on in terms of conflict. So if you do things with schools, the only value you really have is not to be community outreach, is so that they become students and they become black belts, and then less kids get bullied. So that's the only reason this matters. Otherwise, you know, you'd be better off just getting more students some other way and making them black belts, and then they would be bullied less. And then we'd fix bullying that way rather than doing it some other way. So what Master Oliver is saying is for a real reason. So the mission is get more students so that you guys can make them black belts so that they can be bullied less in whatever format you guys do it.
And if you feel like it's difficult to get into these schools and to work with them, you're wrong. You may be using a failed strategy, but you know, we hear it all the time. You don't understand California. You don't understand Canada. You don't understand New York City. No, we do. We've had tremendous success in working directly and with elementary schools and so forth in all areas of North America as well as around Europe. But it just means your strategy is failed if you're having a difficult time with that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, I hopefully that's. Does anybody else have anything to add? I think we've covered a lot of things. We've gone over by a half hour, which is not. I'm not surprised with this topic. There's so much to cover. I appreciate everybody here.
All about 8 hours.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's when we teach the seminar. When I do it for a group, it's usually 8 hours because we do instructor training and we train them on how to do classes and everything. I think that you know, there's a lot to cover. Again, please reach out to me. And we're going to do another follow-up webinar. Generally about every couple months. It might be every 3 months. The next topic is going to be on attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Big problem for martial arts school owners. We've got some other topics that we're going to cover. I really appreciate the Martial Arts Wealth Mastery Group, Ask Master Mom, Go To Karate for sponsoring it. Somebody asked a question, I'd be offering a webinar on instruction classes for this topic. Well, if you want instruction directly, call me directly and we can talk about it. Okay?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for the positive.
And again, I see a lot of argument about this district, my district. Well, you're wrong. Not to be argumentative, but I've had, you know, district administrators tell me there's a blanket policy that means this, and by the time I presented it, we had blanket access to the district, and oftentimes nobody else did. So it's a pretty straightforward problem to solve.
All right, guys.
And of course, okay.
Well, no, we're good. We're good. Thank you, sir. No, I mean, I think that's great. Thanks, Master Barn. Thanks, Master Thomas. I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys go on gotokarate.com/bullying. Master Oliver, make sure you guys go on martialartswealth.com. Please take advantage of those. They sponsored the webinar today, so please take advantage of those. You're going to get a lot of benefit by going there. And Ask Master Mom's a great site to visit for Master Olson. When Master Barnum and I finish our book, we'll let everybody know. And thanks a lot, everybody. And
thank you, sir.
We will see you later.